Hello again, everybody, and welcome to the Mike Francesa podcast on the Bet Rivers Network, brought to you by Casamigos Tequila. Casamigos Tequila is brought to you by those who drink it. We come to you in this late evening on Thursday or into already Friday morning. It is Friday morning now on the Mike Francesa channel, on the Bet Rivers Network, on YouTube, after St. John's. I want to call it matter of fact. Hey, it's a 2:15 game. They ran away and hid after a very, very sluggish start. It was not a typical St. John's game. Um, yes, they get off to the bad start, which is very typical of St. John's, but their defensive intensity was completely lacking in the first half, especially the first 15 minutes of the game. They gave up an incredible amount of offensive rebounds. I mean, in the first half, they forced 4 turnovers. They were out rebounded on the offensive glass 9-2. Scott and Richmond spent most of the first half on the bench with 2 fouls apiece. Um, they gave up easy basket after easy basket, and let's be honest, it was they did not get any fast break baskets, and they were fortunate to even get out of there. If they hadn't turned the ball over and it was an unforced error, they would have got out of there with a 2-point lead or losing at the half. Instead, they got the 3-point play right before the half and got up 5. And leading by 5 was a margin that they didn't even deserve in the first half. You knew they'd come out and play St. John's basketball in the second half. The first 6 minutes of the second half is what you're going to hang your hat on. That was St. John's basketball, attacking the glass, playing defense, contesting shots, contesting passing lanes, turning the ball over, getting some baskets on the run. Now, in this game, they did make 14 threes because Omaha basically challenged them to shoot threes. They packed it in and said, shoot threes. They missed a lot of them, then they made a bunch of them. They took 37 threes. They're not going to take 37 threes by design. They took 37 threes because this team challenged them to take threes. So they took them. They made 14 of them, which for them is a lot. But it was not, like I said, a typical St. John's game. St. John's allowed 19 offensive rebounds in this game. Now, the second half was a lot of garbage time after the first 6 minutes because it was 20-something points, and then the question was whether or not they just were going to cover or not. And then they got that one splurge again when they were up 20 or 19 and then put 10 straight points up, and you knew that they were fine. But it wasn't a great performance. It wasn't an inspired performance. It's a move-on performance, and now they do against Arkansas, which I thought would be playing against them. Arkansas was in control. Kansas took the game over, and then Kansas, in complete control, up 3 with the ball, turned the ball over 4 straight times. And Arkansas took advantage of it, got the lead back, and won the game. I actually thought Arkansas was in trouble with about 3 minutes to play. Arkansas wins, so it's Calipari against Pitino. You'll see all the statistics, which mean nothing. You'll see hear about all the history dating back. Little Ricky, their days that when they were very young. Pitino basically going into his pocket to pay for some of Calipari's contract at UMass as an alum. I mean, listen. Calipari follows him to Kentucky. We know what happens now at Arkansas, so we know the history. It's a deep history. It's a fun history. It's a juicy history. This is a game St. John's should win. Arkansas has athletes. They're going to run up and down the floor. They're going to shoot threes. They're going to drive. They're going to attack the rim. I don't think they play quality defense. St. John's has got to break this habit, though, and the Arkansas game this weekend would be a good way to start of getting off to these awful starts, because after this game, after the Arkansas game, and I wouldn't even want to try it in the Arkansas game, but after the Arkansas game, whether it's Texas Tech, which is in a little bit of a struggle right now with NC Wilmington. Let me get an update on that because that's still going on. Texas Tech has a 5-point lead. Michigan is in a white knuckler with UC San Diego. They were leading by big numbers, 14 at the half. UC San Diego has come back. It's now a 1-point game in the final minute, so maybe they're going to get an upset there. We'll get to what was the story of the day. A couple of surprises. obviously McNeese over a very bad Clemson team. And that final score looking 69-67 is really misleading because they dominated the game. And then Drake, who I liked, who I've talked about for months now, I thought they'd win this matchup. It was a classic slow it down, player style with a wonderful coach. McCollum is a hot coach. He's going to be a hotter coach. I would expect him as an Iowa native to go to Iowa. Since Indiana's full, I thought he would go into the Big Ten. Uh, he's a Midwest guy. He's from Iowa. He's won national championships on Division II level. Now he's gone to Drake, and he's had a brilliant year at Drake. And now he wins the first round game. He gets ready to play the winner of Texas Tech Wilmington, and maybe goes to the Sweet 16. All it does is put some more numbers on his contract. But he's going to the big time very quickly at 43. He's a very, very hot property, and he made himself a hotter property. McNeese, the coach doesn't have to be upwardly mobile. He's already agreed to go to NC State. So he's left. He even took the job before the tournament, which people thought could be a distraction. It wasn't. His team played well. They held on against Clemson, which finally scored some points in the last minutes. Clemson scored 13 points in the first half, scored 54 points in the second half, basically the last 40 of them in the last 8 minutes of the game, but it wasn't enough as they fell. Now, St. John's, you didn't expect much out of this game. We expected what we got. Patino's always done well in these games. I would think that I thought the game would be somewhere between 25 and 35 points, the final score. Once they got off to a fast start, they're not going to call the dogs off. You call the dogs off when you're winning big early, and then you got a huge lead, and then you call the dogs off. Now, in that kind of game, they didn't really call the dogs off. Because they played so poorly in the first 15 minutes of the game. But they move on. They get Arkansas. I like them against Arkansas. They should beat Arkansas to get to the Sweet 16, which is a tremendous achievement. And then it's going to get a lot tougher because standing in the way, probably Texas Tech, but we'll see. Florida, we would expect. And going through teams like that is going to be very, very difficult. Texas Tech was actually the second favorite in the region after Florida to go to the Final Four, ahead of St. John's. They were a shorter favorite to go to the Final Four. Michigan won. Jack tells me Michigan won 68-65. They held on against UC. Now all that's left is Texas Tech, which has a 4-point lead with 11 minutes to play. So Michigan moves on. They now will play Texas A&M and UC San Diego. I'm sure Michigan got tired of hearing everybody who was on TV anywhere picking UC San Diego. They all did. They were all picking. They pick all the 12s. And, they're going to get one right. They got McNeese right. They didn't get the others right. They got McNeese right. We'll see tomorrow if they get Colorado State right. It wasn't a overly exciting day. Like I said, you got the McNeese win. You got the Drake win. For St. John's, it's just good to see them back in the tournament again. And now the build-up in Providence to the Calipari-Patino matchup, which will come your way on Saturday. Now, here's your winners and your matchups for Saturday. The only one we don't have is an opponent for Drake. Auburn plays Creighton. Creighton was very impressive today. Moved the ball brilliantly. Got a great performance from Neal. A terrific performance from their little point guard. Really a wonderful overall performance. Lights out from three. Really played so well today in beating Louisville in front of a Louisville crowd in Lexington. Auburn wasn't overly impressive again, but they, of course, won. So now we have Auburn against Creighton, and Creighton has a chance in that game. Michigan plays Texas A&M, another very good game. Michigan with the two big men. Texas A&M, one of the real ferocious physical teams in the country that throws the ball up on the glass and goes and gets it. Arkansas St. John's, Drake waiting to see if they will play Texas Tech, which will be a very fun matchup. BYU held off VCU. VCU was another darling, but BYU beat them. Wisconsin had no trouble with Montana. So we have a BYU Wisconsin game, which should be a high scoring, up and down the floor game. Gonzaga clearly was better than an 8-9. All the numbers showed it, all the odds showed it. I told you they were a 6.5 point favorite as an 8-9, which I had not seen before. Connecticut's a 5.5. They were a 6.5, and they came out today and led Georgia 27-3 in what was as one-sided a game as you could possibly have, and as one-sided an 8-9 game as we've ever seen. I mean, they were never in the game for one play, and now you have a fascinating game. A Gonzaga team which is much better than an 8 playing against Houston. So Gonzaga, Houston had no trouble today, as you would expect. Held an opponent to 40 points, 16 in the second half. McNeese gets Purdue, and from what I saw today from McNeese, is going to have their hands full. That's going to be a very tough game. For McNeese could win that game, and then UCLA, who a lot of people counted out tonight too. I picked UCLA because I like Cronin. I think he does a good job, and they get Tennessee in what will be a very rugged second round game, and not a great matchup for the Bruins. But that's your Saturday matchups. Now, before we would bid you adieu, and we'll be back tomorrow night after tomorrow night's games. Let me give you a couple of thoughts on tomorrow's matchups. Okay. We get underway with Baylor and Miss State. Miss State's a 1.5 point favorite. I don't know what to make of this game. I think it's a flip of a coin. I really do. Alabama, which has the injury to Nelson, won't have any trouble with Robert Morris. As a matter of fact, most of the 2 seeds are like 18, 19 point underdogs, 19 point favorites. Alabama's a 23 point favorite, which tells you Robert Morris is even a little weaker. Iowa State will probably be without 2 huge players, but they should be able to handle Lipscomb. I don't know if they'll go any farther in this tournament after that, but this will be very tough for Iowa State because they are very banged up for this tournament. Colorado State is actually favored against Memphis. Now, everybody loves UC San Diego when they lost. They played well. They came back on them. They were down 14 at the half. They lost by 3, but they lost. Colorado State against Memphis. Memphis will not have their all-league guard Tyrese Hunter in this game, which is why everyone's going with Colorado State. I would not be surprised if Colorado State, which is playing very well now, I think Colorado State will probably win that game. Duke will flex its muscles against Mount St. Mary's with Cooper Flagg cleared to play. Vandy, St. Mary's is the favorite, but another toss-up 7-10 game. Carolina goes against Ole Miss. Believe it or not, Carolina now is the favorite. Why? Number one, because their name is North Carolina. Number two, because they were so impressive in their game. But number three, because teams come out of that play-in game and usually win again. That has been the history. So, or add that all up, and you have Carolina favored over Ole Miss. Maryland, very good team. Iron Man starting 5 because they don't have a deep bench. Get Grand Canyon. They're a 10-point favorite in that game. Florida's your typical 28.5 against Norfolk State. Kentucky's only 11 against Troy, which tells you that they're a weaker 3 and they have injuries. I don't know a lot about Troy. I'm not going to tell you I do. Okay. If I did, I'd have a better feeling on whether they could get beat in this game. I think Kentucky will win this game, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's the only game they win. New Mexico Marquette is a terrific matchup. 2 terrific guards. Richard Pitino, who's being mentioned for other jobs. Obviously, Marquette. The Big East has done well so far. Xavier has won, and Creighton has won, and St. John's has won. Now Marquette takes the action, and the Big East has shown very well so far. Akron knows how to win, they know how to score, but they don't have players like Arizona. I expect Arizona to get by in the 4-13 game. Oklahoma, Connecticut. I favor UConn in this game, but was well coached. They have a really good player they can hang their hat on, and UConn has played very poor defense all year. I think UConn will survive this game. I wouldn't be surprised if it's close, but I think they'll survive this game, and then I think they'll get whacked by Florida. Xavier plays Illinois. Illinois has been banged up. We're supposedly hearing they're healthy for this game. I still think Xavier's got a great chance to win what should be a very contentious game. Bryant is not a bad club. They really aren't. But they're a different league than Michigan State. And that's why Michigan State moves on. And then Liberty plays Oregon in your typical 12-5, and a lot of people always pick all the 12s. I think Oregon wins the game. I think they're the better team, and they're 7.5-point favorites in the game, in the 12-5 game. And then obviously the Saturday matchups. I don't have times yet. You're going to have two CBS standalone games starting at noon. You're going to have a standalone game. Then you're going to have another standalone game because they backload everything for cable, because cable wants the games in prime time. CBS wants the games in the afternoon. Same thing for Sunday. You get two standalone games. I wouldn't be surprised at all if St. John's Arkansas is a standalone game. I would not be surprised even a little bit if it is. We don't have the times yet. We should have them by tomorrow morning. Probably a little later tonight, but we don't have to wait around for it. But I would not be surprised if St. John's is a standalone game. And I also like the Creighton-Auburn game because I think Creighton is playing really well. Creighton not only has the center and the point guard, they're getting so much out of other players now. Jackson McAndrew has grown up. They're getting a lot out of Green. They're getting a lot out of a lot of different guys, and they are a deep and talented team and dangerous. Dangerous. They really are. I don't know if they can beat Auburn, but as a 10-point underdog, I think they are a very, very live underdog in that game come Saturday. So St. John's rolls. Obviously, as we move along, we're going to have a lot more to discuss. It's Calipari and Pitino, which will be fun. Arkansas comes out of a big league. They're a legitimate team. Physically, they are a legitimate team. They're not a very good defensive team. I think that could hurt them in this game against St. John's, especially with St. John's on the offensive glass. But fascinating game. And St. John's needs to start as they move deeper into this tournament to get out of the gate faster. I'll give it to them tonight in a 15 game. And also waiting around all day. Not easy to do, to play the late game on Thursday. You're all excited for days, and now you got to wait around all day today to finally play this game at 10 o'clock tonight. Not easy to do. I admit that. And they sure didn't look good. And they did look good in the second half, especially the first 6 minutes where they gave you some vintage St. John's basketball. But overall, I thought it was no better than a ho-hum night for St. John's, but they move on with a 30-point win against Omaha, and that's all you can ask. We'll talk to you after round 2 is history tomorrow night.